Hi, it's Christos and Jim again. Cyprus Without Borders. We've been offline for we haven't been around in in quite a while because I've been away from Cyprus. Although I came back a few days ago. It's just as cold here as it is in England. I understand that back in London now, you're in there. People are enjoying temperatures of about 15, 16 degrees, and that's pretty much what we've got here as well. But anyway, I'm back for a little while, and Jim and I wanted to hold a little live discussion. And I've been completely out of the loop actually since I've been abroad. I've been more preoccupied with Brexit being in England than what I am with this. So, Jim.
Can you put it live in the other two groups?
Yeah, that's what we're going to do.
Yeah.
So I'm going to hand over for you now, and I'm going to do that.
Yeah,
okay?
You do that. Yeah.
So you tell us what you want to talk about.
Yeah. Today we want to talk about several issues. The meeting with Anastasiadis and Akinci. They allegedly came up with some confidence-building measures, which we want to have a look at. And there's also the matter of Turkey is starting a huge military exercise tomorrow, so we want to go through that as well. And we're going to talk about our Sunday trip to the Eastern Buffer Zone. So we want to cover Atheno, Akhna, Strovilla, Varosha, and with particular regard to Strovilla, which is the area that they've been talking about the violation of the Turkish troops coming down, moving down. So we want to have a look at that. Now we're just going to share the video with Cyprus Memories and Cyprus News Group, because there's a lot of people interested in what we do. So as soon as Christo is ready for that, we will also discuss these matters. As well. So how are you going?
Yeah, getting there. You can keep talking if you want.
Yeah. All right. So we want to talk about the confidence building measures first, I think.
Right. I'm not a member with Cypriot Memories. I've applied for it, and so you're going to have to maybe share it from your page. But I've done it to the Cyprus News Group. So sorry, apologies about that. So as I said, I've been away, so I'm a little bit out of the loop. I'm very much relying on Jim to keep me informed as well as to what's been happening while I've been away. I met up with Jim on Sunday. There were a group of young journalists, student journalists from the Netherlands, who had come over to do an assignment on the buffer zone, the UN buffer zone. And so I met up with them in Bila, and we took a little walk around the square there. We also, before I went to Bila, I met them in Bila. They hung out for a little while in Athieno. After that, we drove up to the past Akhna village past along the buffer zone there at Akhna village. We saw the deserted village, and we were really hoping that it was going to be an opportunity for these student journalists to go back to the Netherlands with a lot more information than because they didn't really know anything at all about the Cyprus dispute until they came over and spent this time that they did with Jim. So,
well, they came to report.
Yeah, they came to report on it.
Why don't I see it on?
Okay, why is it's not there? It doesn't always update quickly. Wait, no. It's not on there.
All right, yeah. So just to give me a second. Yeah.
And so while Jim sorts that out, like I said, I've been in the UK. I went on a little plane journey, obviously, to get there. And I boarded the plane, and I was sitting behind a Turkish-speaking Cypriot lady. And I'm not very good at sleeping on planes, so it was quite good to have somebody to talk to. And there were some English people. There was a lady who was visiting her boyfriend who was studying in Gdynia. And I got talking to the Turkish-speaking Cypriot lady on the way back, and sorry, on just for the last hour of the journey, and it was quite an interesting conversation to have with her. She seemed to repeat a lot of the things which I've heard people say before, and stuff that I've read on social media with regards to the Cyprus problem. She spoke about the invasion being an intervention. She said that Turkey would not have invaded if that they didn't need to. I went on to talk to her about the European elections, and of course, Jim and I have already stated that we're going to be voting for Şener Levent, and we are going to be supporting his campaign to get elected as and when the as throughout the period leading up to the election. And I told her about him, and she wasn't very well informed about him. Actually, she'd known a few things, but she seemed very keen for me to talk before she would talk. And so I told her my reasons why. And I told her that the Cyprus, I told her about the bathtub killings, which we had spoken about before in Cyprus Without Borders. And I think it was the last discussion we had where we'd spoken about the bathtub killings and how this is a sort of thing which is being taught in schools, in the Turkish-speaking schools in Cyprus, with pictures of the most unfortunate deceased mother and 3 children in the bathtub. And I told her that it had been exposed as a lie by Şener Levent, and actually the photos weren't what they appeared to be, and how the TMT or whoever else framed the Greek-speaking Cypriots, and they've used that as propaganda against the Greek-speaking Cypriots ever since. And at that point, she turned around and she said to me, "Oh yeah, well, I knew that they were fake. My father had already told me." And then I just think to myself, at what point do you think to yourself, well, what else have I been told among the over recent while I've been growing up? What other lies have I been told? And I think that this is also an interesting thing that we can maybe talk about this evening. So please, if you want to make any comments about it, then please do so. And I need to hand over to Jim just for a moment.
Yeah, just
do it.
Just get that sorted out so I can concentrate. How am I going to share it?
Well, I managed to share it. Here, look, share to group.
Okay, so put it in Cyprus Memories down there.
Yeah.
That's it. So the other one's shared, right?
Done.
Okay.
All right.
All right, thank you.
Okay. And so, yeah, that was another thing which I was, at what point, when you hear of something so tragic, which has been used as propaganda in a very, very negative way your whole life, and it's something that you've been hearing of, your whole life, at what point do you start to ask yourself, well, what else have I been told isn't true? And that's another thing which I want to ask, like Turkish-speaking Cypriots, this question. This is what I'm asking. At what point do you think, well, hold on a minute, if I've been told this big, huge lie, what other lies have I been told? And so, and of course, if anybody has heard of any other propaganda stories which have turned out to be fictional, then please let's talk about those as well. If there's any that are true, we can also talk about those.
All right. Okay, so Christo, let's. Clarissa, would you do me a favour? Could you check to see whether they are shared in the other two groups? That's Cyprus Memories and Cyprus News Group, because I did promise them that they would be broadcast live. So
I'm in Cyprus Memories now.
So it's there. It's there.
Yeah, it's there.
It's there. Okay. All right. So should be okay in Cyprus News Group as well. Cyprus Memories. Okay. All right. So we want to talk about certain things today about the Anastasiadis and Akinci meeting, which finished this afternoon. And would like some feedback on this, what the members think. There were 4 points that were apparently agreed upon. So the mobile network is to be connected, the northern occupied areas with the ROC through a centre in either Luxembourg or Spain. So what would happen is that when I go to, for instance, I go to Kyrenia, or a Turkish Cypriot comes to Limassol, they can continue to use that number. It would be relayed to some sort of point outside in the European Union, and then it comes back to Cyprus. So that was the first thing that they decided. The other thing was the electricity grid is now going to be connected permanently, and apparently it's to be used in the case of emergencies. So I don't know exactly what that is all about.
Will they pay for it?
Well, we supply several villages electricity, from what I understand. Marmari, Lurungina and Bila are on the Cyprus grid, and they get free electricity, right? And they owe 250 million euros since the year 2000, which they haven't paid. So that's causing a little bit of a problem with us. And then we've got an agreement with the North. Akinci has stated that they found 200 works of art in Varosha after they ransacked and looted everything, and apparently they have them in Kyrenia Castle. And so they're works of art which he's going to hand over to the ROC that they found in the houses, basically. And in return, Anastasiadis agreed to hand over video of any Turkish Cypriot cultural events and anything to do with the Turkish Cypriots that the CYBC has since 1960. So the period 1960 to 63. They're going to hand over those from the archives. And they also discussed that they want to open 2 more crossings. Basically, that's what they talked about. One in Biroi and Gochina.
Gochina.
Yeah.
That's quite an isolated place anyway, isn't it? I mean,
It's a little enclave, but
yeah.
the thing is, Gochina creates a huge problem with trying to get around Gochina.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to go through the mountains and then come down to the coast.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're able to go through just straight along the coast, it's a 5-minute drive. But when you got to go around, it takes half an hour. So that's why they want to do that.
Okay.
So that's what they're talking about. The other thing that they're talking about is the political equality. They're trying to get that sorted out. And Anastasiadis has proposed that some of the items, some of the tasks, can be handed over to each respective constituent state, as they call it, so that it clears up the bureaucracy. But it's not enough for the Turks. The Turks want veto on everything. So we'll be back in a situation just like it was back in the 60s, where if the Turkish Cypriots received a phone call from Ankara and they said, no, we don't want this to go through, you've got to veto it. And it would actually paralyse the state, which they could easily do. Not only that, it would create a problem for the European Union too. Because if Turkey didn't want something in the European Union to be voted on, then they could freeze the ability for Cyprus to go to the European Union and vote on an issue. So it will be technically it's a backdoor to Turkey. Cyprus, they want to use it as a backdoor. So we're not going to allow. That's something that's not going to be allowed.
It's like Turkey wants Cyprus as their backdoor to the EU.
Yes.
As well, it's kind of working in both ways.
Yes.
And was there anything else you wanted to add on that?
Well, I think that's basically what it's about. They said that there aren't going to be any talks until June because they've got elections in Turkey in May.
Yeah, Akinci said he's not expecting any talks before June.
Yeah, before June.
So we might get them after June. Who knows?
Yeah,
we'll see. But I don't know how optimistic. Whenever I hear that talks are resuming, I can't say I fill with excitement at that, because I mean it's so many times we've heard that talks are resuming and they always end in this exactly the same way as without making any progress. And it's the issue on settlers, which Turkey have imported since the invasion, and the issue of Turkey wanting to remain as a guarantor on the island, and I can't see them changing that stance at all. But anyway, not to go on, not to talk. I mean, there's no talks on the horizon, so maybe it's not the most important thing we could be talking about. Jim has mentioned what was discussed today between Akinci and Anastasiadis. He said about some works of art that are being returned, which have been stored in the Gerinya Castle, and they're being returned to their rightful owners. So they know which houses they've come from, and
they don't know who the rightful owners.
So we don't really know yet. I mean,
they don't know who the rightful owners, but they're going to be handed over to the
ROC.
To the ROC. It's up to the ROC then to determine what they're going to do with it.
Yeah.
But
we don't know what they're of. They're not icons from churches.
Some of them are icons.
Some of them are icons.
Some of them are icons, not necessarily from churches, but from some of the works that the locals did.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
So this is their gesture of goodwill, I suppose, by handing back like some paintings which have been in Gerinya Castle. And I don't know how you feel about it, Jim, but to me it seems like a very poor attempt at a gesture of goodwill, just to hand back.
Yeah, well, it's better than nothing, I suppose.
Yeah, it's better than nothing, but I think they could do a lot more.
Yeah, like give back Varosha.
They could give, which is standing
That's
there doing that.
good,
They could for a start. I know I keep banging on about it, but they could stop lighting up that monstrosity on Bendadaktilos every night. They could even just get rid of that flag altogether. Those two flags, the words which are written underneath it. And I'm not going to suddenly get excited to say, oh, the Turks are showing goodwill, because really I think them handing back a few paintings is, I mean, I have to speak from the heart, is just really poor. Jim's also spoken about this is a little bit more interesting maybe, mobile networks joining up again. And you said something about them going through the European mainland, so that it's not going to connect directly, it's going to go through.
No.
Okay.
It's going to be relayed through some sort of network in either Luxembourg or Spain.
Okay.
So it'll be connected there, so that because otherwise, well, the Turkish the Turkish companies, are actually illegal in the north, so we can't connect to them direct. So they've decided now that they want a neutral point somewhere in Europe where the phone systems can be relayed.
Right. And the electricity, so I thought, so they're going to join the whole grid.
Yeah.
Now, so they're going to join the whole grid of electricity, whereas now it only feeds these 3 villages.
Yeah.
It
doesn't mean we're going to give them electricity. They have their own electricity plants.
Okay.
Now,
okay.
Over there, they supply their own electricity.
Okay.
So
they're just going to connect to the grids.
Yeah. Apart from the 3 villages, that we're not going to have. Give them free electricity except for those 3 villages and some points. I think in Varosha for the UN, supply electricity to the UN. All right, so
it would be nice. Maybe they could pay the 250 million that they owe Cyprus electricity, and then we could, talk about joining the grids. All right, and the other thing was to open more crossings. Yeah.
Yeah, there's 2 more crossings that they're discussing. It's at Biroi, which is just north of Vathiano, and the other crossing is at Kochina. Right, so they're talking about those 2 crossings.
Mm-hmm.
But, these things are just wasting time, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, they're not...
all right, so Jim and I, we haven't had much time to plan what we're going to talk about tonight. I've only been back in Cyprus for a few days, and I'm, and I've been running around visiting relatives, and I myself, I'm not very well read up on what's been happening. And what Jim has just spoken about what was discussed today. I mean, I glanced at it briefly earlier, but this is my first in-depth look at it all.
Yeah.
And it seems. And I've always been, when the other crossings opened more recently in Derinya, I was always saying it just felt like another step towards recognition. And today's discussion between Anastasiadis and Akinci, that makes me feel even deeper. It keeps me even deeper with that belief that we're heading towards some sort of legitimization, because they want to open 2 more crossings, and they want to join the electricity grid, and they want to join the mobile phone network in a way, and in return they're going to hand over some paintings. So again, it's just the what we've come to expect, really, I suppose, of always being left shortchanged.
Well, we are the losing side, so we're going to get shortchanged.
Yeah,
that's the way it works. Anyway, what I want to talk about now is the Turkish naval exercises that start tomorrow. They're apparently the largest naval exercises that Turkey's ever done. It's a show of strength. So they're going to do it in the Black Sea, the Aegean, and in the Mediterranean Sea, south of Limassol. They've blocked all these areas. And obviously, it's Erdogan is trying to create some sort of disturbance because of what's happening with the hydrocarbons. We're expecting ExxonMobil to announce the results of the results of the hydrocarbons in Block 10, and apparently they're quite large. So we're waiting on that, and apparently Total and Eni are going to start to drill in blocks 6 and 7 again. So, the hydrocarbons are proceeding. The policy of the government, as they stated today, is we ignore what the Turks are doing. Okay, we just let them do what they're doing, right? Because what they want, they're looking for a provocation, right? So that we can so that they can create an artificial incident, and therefore that would sort of stop the foreign companies from coming here and
extracting the gases and
doing what they're doing.
Yeah.
So that's the situation there.
All right, so the Republic of Cyprus taking a little bit of what you just said, they're not going to take the bait kind of thing, but what are the international communities saying about it? Have you read anything?
About what?
About Turkey's exercise?
Nothing.
Their naval exercise? No, say nothing.
Nothing yet.
It's not looking good, is it? It's not looking good.
Yeah, but why do we expect anybody to do anything for us? Well, we don't even do anything.
Because
we don't even do anything.
But but we've made a deal with Exxon and American companies and whatever other European Western companies. Does part of the deal not include some sort of protection?
Yeah.
It should do, shouldn't it?
Yeah, protection of their rights.
Of their own rights, yeah.
Their own platforms.
Mm-hmm.
They'll protect their platforms. Okay? So, we're just saying these 3 young journalists from the Netherlands came this week, and we showed them around. And they knew absolutely nothing about Cyprus.
Nothing at all,
yeah. Okay, one of the ladies, she has been to Cyprus before, so she was aware of the situation. But the other one also has some Greek heritage. Part of her family's Greek, so she was aware of the situation. And the other one, she knew absolutely nothing about a Turkish invasion or a buffer zone or nothing.
Yeah.
Right, and she was shocked when she had a look, and she had a look that what's going on here. And I explained to them we are second-class EU citizens because we don't have our rights enshrined. Well, our rights are enshrined in the Lisbon Treaty, but nobody implements them. So we are in effect second-rate citizens because we don't have free movement. We don't have the right to settle. Our properties have been stolen. So,
and it was one of the a reason why the Cypriot public got behind joining the EU was in the belief that some support would come from it, and there's been none at all really, and the violations continue, which leads us on to the next thing we were going to talk about as well, the Strovilla. Tell us what's happened there, Jim, because we wanted to talk about that as well.
Well, the 3 ladies, young ladies that came to Cyprus, the reason why they came is because they're writing up a report on the buffer zone. They selected the buffer zone, so they wanted to know how it works, when the history of it, when was it established, why was it established, why is it still here, and why, what the problem is. So we did start from the buffer zone at Lidra. This was on last Wednesday, and we crossed over and we had a look at the buffer zone from the occupied areas. And of course, as we approached the buffer zone in one area, a Turkish soldier jumped up in front of us because one of the gates was a little bit open, and we approached the gate to see what was going on. How come, why is the gate open directly into the buffer zone? But it was because he was inside, and I believe illegally, or against the agreements of the buffer zone, on the inside. So he jumped up in front of us and with his gun, and he said to us, you can't be here, you've got to go away. But we had, I described for them, I explained to them what the situation was and how some areas the buffer zone is very, very narrow, only 10 meters in some areas between the two opposing armies. So we walked along the buffer zone in Nicosia, and then we went through and we went to the free areas of the Republic, and we went around, and there was a young soldier there, the Cyprus National Guard, and he was very friendly, wanted to answer our questions, and he even allowed us to take some photos in the area there. So then we went to Ayos Kasianos on Sunday morning and showed them there what the situation was at the buffer zone. But then we went by car, we went into Athieno. We went to Athieno because at that point there, the buffer zone is 7 kilometers wide. It's the widest part of the buffer zone.
Athieno actually being a village within the buffer zone, is that right?
Yes, yeah. That's right. So the actual village is inside the buffer zone, and we had a look at the boundaries of the buffer zone. So a lot of the areas in the buffer zone are cultivated and used for cattle and everything, and some light industry. But there is no Cyprus authority in Athieno. So the Cyprus police are not there, there's no army, it's just the UN, basically. So after that we went to Pila, and in Pila we had a look at the in the
little square there where the UN outpost is.
Yeah, the little outpost there. And
got talking to some boys there, didn't you?
Yeah, some young Turkish Cypriot boys. I summoned them. They were in the coffee shop. So I asked them some questions. I said to them, what's the situation here? Do you, what do you do? One guy's a part-time taxi driver, and they're both students as well, and they're brothers. So I asked them questions about. Is it safe? Do your cars get attacked when you're in Larnaca, for instance, by the Greek Cypriots? Do the Greek Cypriots hate you? Do they slash your tires? Do they do any damage to your cars? They said to me, absolutely not, nothing at all. Okay, now they've given me from their first-hand experience, and I asked them as well whether. Have they heard about anybody having any problems like that? And they said no. So it's a bit of a dilemma, apparently the Greek Cypriots are being accused of doing all sorts of things to the Turkish Cypriots, and also I asked them about whether they have friends. Greek Cypriot friends, and they said yes, they do. Anyway, there is a video which you can see, which we've put it on, we've posted it on, which you can watch. So by all means, you can have a look at the video. So after that, we went straight north into the bases, the British bases, and then we went to Akhna. And we stopped on the side of the road, is that right?
Yeah, we stopped in a couple of places. Just before where the roundabout is, the road which the roundabout which led to Lefkosia. And just lots of farmland there, really. Lots of, not many buildings, the odd derelict warehouse or something. But going along further on, I mean, I've driven past Akhna many times, and and so the road there acts as the border. Effectively, you're driving along the border,
the SPA boundary.
The SPA boundary, let's call it. Okay, and there's some of the watchtowers along the way are manned, some of them are unmanned, and some of them are
the houses
taller than others. But the houses are all empty.
Very well maintained, aren't they?
The houses are empty. They've been looted. There's no doors. There's no windows, and it's all stuff which we've spoken about 1,000 times already, and nobody seems to really take much notice about it. But it's very, very important because the windows, doors, everything, all of these things were taken from the houses of the Cypriot people and taken abroad to Turkey to be sold, to be used, for whatever purpose. And so it's quite heartbreaking to see Akhna. Akhna was once a very vibrant, well, a bit more than a village, wasn't it?
It
was quite almost a town, and
very famous for the halloumi in Akhna.
Yeah, you were saying about the halloumi, with a hint of red.
Yeah, that was sort of a little bit of a rosy colour, and that was because of what the sheep were eating in that area. The soil. The soil is very red. So all right. So we went to Stroviglia. Now Stroviglia, most of the village is inside the SPA. Okay. So there's no way that they could have been occupied because it's actually inside the SPA. But on the edge of the village, there's 2 or 3 houses that remained outside the village, outside the SPA boundary. So there was an issue recently that the Turks had moved their lines down and occupied the 3 houses. Okay, but as I've reported, there is no. When we were there is no evidence. We certainly did not see any barrels, chains, or any barricades of any sort blocking the houses, as was reported. Now, it doesn't mean they weren't there. I suspect if they were, they definitely weren't there on Sunday. That's for sure. There was nothing. Except for a side road on the boundary of the first house. There's a dirt road which leads 50 metres in from the main road, and there were some red barricades there, basically. So they're definitely British barricades because they're those Jersey plastic barricades, and the Turks don't have those. So they were definitely put up by the British, exactly on the SPA boundary, where that dirt road goes into the. Now they use the lame excuse that they're concerned about smuggling and all this sort of nonsense, but when you think about the actual line into the SPA, I mean, there's at least 20 or 30 kilometres, which is totally, walking directly from any point from the occupied areas onto the SPA boundary on the road, basically. Mm-hmm. So we went to Stroviglia. I took some photos. I didn't see any barrels or anything. We were prepared to create a bit of an incident if there were, but there was nothing there to do, basically. So either the Turks had, in conjunction with the Greek, with the British, had, the British may have told them, look, just move back and we'll just pretend that we're going to put up some barriers up here. So they're basically covering them for what they were doing. But there was an initial violation according to the press and the reports of the UN. But definitely on Sunday afternoon when I was there was nothing. It was all removed. So they withdrew and they went back to where they were before. The point is there that the checkpoint is right opposite. I mean, the houses, if you open your front door, the checkpoint's in front of you anyway, the Turks. So they violated that in 2000 when they moved their checkpoint down about 300-400 meters from where it was in 1974. So they came down and they violated the ceasefire. And of course, they've always been there, and despite the repeated UN violations and the protests by the RSA government, nothing's been done about it. The Turks had allegedly came down 300 meters and set up their roadblocks and expanded their occupation.
Mm-hmm.
And that happened in 2000. So anyway, that's what happened there. And then we went to Varosha, and Varosha looked pretty bad. It looked like it's basically really abandoned on the outside, even on the outside. So we went down to the seafront down there, and there was even the posts, they weren't manned. I don't remember personally in the past that they were never manned at all. And there was a little opening there where those green meshes that they put up so you can't see through had partially collapsed. So I pulled it down, and so we could take photos on the inside. And I didn't.
Did you do that? Did you do that? Because I saw in the video there was.
Yeah, it was slightly.
It was flapping around anyway, was it?
Yeah, so I just pulled it all the way down to the ground, basically. So I don't know.
Was there anybody watching you?
Well, obviously not. I'm still here. They didn't arrest me.
Okay. And
for anybody who wants to just be careful, if anybody's going to go from Strovilla to Varosha, there's a speed trap there. They deliberately put up a camera to catch the Greek Cypriots. Obviously, times are tough in the north, and they need money. So they put up a speed trap there, so they can grab some bucks off the people who are going through there. So you've got to be careful. It's 50-kilometre. Apparently, it's 50-kilometre speed limit. So if you go over that,
yeah, they
catch you with a radar, with a speed camera. So the feeling I got was that the north is really, really in a bad shape, in a bad state of affairs. It's been basically abandoned. And I think it's because Turkey, having financial problems, has cut down the financial aid to the occupied north, basically, because you can just tell things are decaying. It just looked really off, basically.
Maybe they should sell a few battleships, and then they can, rather than start training in our waters.
Has anybody got any questions or anything? I see that there's a few people on. Is there anything that you want to discuss? Any questions?
So
is it working? Is this working?
It's all working. It's all working. It's all up and running, and it's.
Well, how come mine? Here there are questions.
I mean, we can read out. Clarissa's made a comment I asked her why it's important for the communications to be up and running, and she said so that Cypriots could communicate directly, which is very important. But I think they already can. You know, there is a way to communicate. So I'm not. I just again like all of these things which were discussed today between Anastasiades and Akinci is just, for me, it's just one more step towards legitimization, and I'm not particularly feeling very positive about it, as I've already said. But yeah, I mean, and that the communications are going through a third party as well. You know, it's not like a direct thing. It's going through a third party. So what's it going to be? Is it going to be with the +357 prefix? All of it? Is that
no.
the
I mean,
intention?
they use the prefixes don't change. It's the relay. It's the way that the two sides are connected. I mean, nobody's going to know.
What do they have? Do they have turkeys?
They have turkey +90.
+90. So it's going to stay +90, is it?
Yeah. Yes, unfortunately. But they won't accept the 357 because that gives recognition to the ROC.
And this is it. It's all of this, you know, so much being done by the RAC. There's so much that is being done on this side. And all they can do is offer a few paintings. And I apologize if I sound a bit downbeat, or if I sound a bit negative, and you know, if I should be embracing this wonderful discussion that was, you know, this progress that was made today between our two respected leaders. But it's just more of the same.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. So is there anything else that we want to talk about? How long have we been on?
46 minutes and 47 seconds. So, like I said, I've just been I've been out of the loop for a little while with being abroad, and I've come back to find out that not a lot has changed. Another bank has closed down the road from Jim. You know,
well, it's not the bank has closed down. It's the branch.
Right, the branch has closed down, but that's the biggest difference I've found really since I've been away for about 6 weeks.
I think they're cost cutting.
Cost cutting.
Sorry.
And I've been very, very preoccupied with Brexit while I've been over in the UK. We could talk a little about that maybe another time. But there we go. The UK's had.
What do you think? It's Brexit from a political point of view. Do you think Brexit is good for Cyprus or bad for Cyprus?
This is what I was going to ask as well.
Let's look at it from.
Who was that letter by? There was a resident of occupied Cyprus, an English gentleman, who has written. Who was the letter addressed to? Did you read it? Requesting that the British government, now that the UK is leaving the EU, perhaps we could consider, or perhaps the UK could consider recognising the TRNC. Did you read that letter? Who was that letter addressed to?
I'm not aware of that letter.
You're not aware of it. So,
but there's there's the usual group of Ottomans.
Of course, there's those.
You know, they're always stirring the pot.
You see, and right? A lot. I mean,
that letter would have been written by Oakes, for instance. Possibly.
It wasn't Oakes. It was someone.
No, but it was written by Oakes and posted on behalf of somebody else. I mean, Oakes is
maybe.
You know.
But I have wondered, I have questioned as well, because there are a lot of English people who reside in occupied Cyprus. They've illegally bought land up there, bought houses, bought property, and bought land and built houses on them, and so there's a substantial amount of expats living in occupied Cyprus. So they are going to join the campaign or the fight or the struggle to legitimize the Turkish occupied north.
Okay.
And so with leaving the EU,
that's what we want to talk about.
Does the UK then have less? Is there less commitment, less binding to, to not are they bound less to not recognizing the TRNC?
There's no issue of anybody recognising the TRNC, Christo, ever.
Well,
unless we agree to it.
Are you sure about that?
How are they going to recognise the TRNC? They have to unrecognise the ROC to do that.
Okay. So, do you think that with
and if any country that recognises the occupied North as a separate state will have a diplomatic problem with the rest of the European Union?
Can you ever imagine, because our leaders, our presidents, our government in the ROC, they do not do anywhere near enough as to what they should do?
Yeah.
Do you
That's
think?
for sure.
Do you think that the right price would ever come along for them to agree to it? You know what I mean? Do you understand my question? Do you think that they'll ever be offered enough for them to get behind?
Yeah, but you're implying that they're getting paid now not to do anything.
Well,
I mean that's treason, if you believe that. No, I just think that
they certainly don't do enough.
There's no people movement, Christo.
No.
We don't have people who, we've talked about this before, the people themselves are not organised in a manner that would expose the situation.
Exactly.
In Europe.
Exactly.
Okay.
So
we're sitting around on our backsides expecting everybody else to do it for us.
Yeah.
But they're not going to.
But I mean, why isn't the government doing it?
Look, the government plays politics. Okay.
Well, the Turkish government have financed, put money in the right places to get their side to,
I agree,
to legitimize their existence in the pseudo state. So why isn't our government giving the right information to the people instead of just giving false hopes all the time? Well,
this is a problem. Why don't we have a movement that we've talked about this before that would agitate the situation? Why isn't it that we don't go to Brussels? We've talked about this, or Strasbourg or Luxembourg, and create a scene when Erdogan arrives.
Yeah.
Okay, and say we're here. Where are our rights? We're EU citizens. Get ourselves on Euronews. Get ourselves on the stations, in the papers. Right? When I've got some young lady who tells me I've never even heard of the Turkish invasion or what's going on here, you know that there's a problem.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So, it's a problem out down there in the Middle East, basically. And it's unless you're really into it, and it's somehow involved with Cyprus, you don't know anything about it.
And on the flip side, though, about 14 years ago, I was in a little town on the South Devon coast called Sidmouth, and there's a folk festival on there every year in the summer. It goes on for about a week, and I was down there, and I was playing, had my guitar, and got talking to a lad. There was a music session, people around playing. Got talking to this one young lad, Scottish lad, and oh, where are you from Cyprus? He goes, oh yeah, and we touched upon it politically, and he said, yeah, but you guys were killing all the Turks, and that to me demonstrates how well the Turks have played the propaganda game. How they put money in the right places to get these books printed, to get their story on television all over Europe, and maybe even all over the world, and to paint themselves as the victims, to legitimize their occupation. And the ROC government is doing almost absolutely nothing
Yeah, I mean,
in
look,
return.
I haven't heard one politician since this Strovilla incident make a statement that, well, if the Turkish troops are here to protect the Turkish Cypriots, how is it that their action to come down and take 3 Greek Cypriot houses doing that?
Yeah.
They're not being exposed in any way, because it's, coming down to occupy 3 Greek Cypriot houses. What, those 3 Greek Cypriot houses were a threat to the Turkish Cypriots, were they? But they were going to get up and start, doing things against the, So this is what I mean. They're just not. Now you might say, well, there's no group, there's no one that's really standing up to Turkish actions and saying, what, they're hypocrites.
Even we're not.
Saying.
Nobody, including us, except me and you, Jim, and a few others.
Well, but the thing is, you and me and a few others isn't going to.
And it's something which we've said in previous broadcasts as well. Like the government isn't doing it. The people of authority aren't doing anything, and it's down to people like me and Jim and a few others who I see on social media who are doing it. Yeah. A lot of people who I talk to are very hurt by the situation and don't even want to talk about it.
Well, look, if they're very hurt by the situation, they don't want to talk about it. When Turkey takes over all of Cyprus, will they be more hurt or less hurt?
And that seems like a realistic prospect as well now, if they're training with, if they're carrying out these exercises which we spoke about earlier. It just seems like even more of a prospect. We've got Turkish warships in our waters.
The only way that the Turks will take over Cyprus is if we make mistakes. They're not going to come and take Cyprus.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So this is a mistake that needs to be avoided.
Well, these are mistakes.
Maybe that's something we've learned from our past. Then.
Well, the Turks have always said, we will wait for the Greek Cypriots to make their mistakes, and then we'll move in.
Yeah. And that's it. That was the first. Yeah, that's what they did in '74.
Yeah, well, that's what they've been doing since 1960, not '74.
Yeah.
Right. So in other words, we need definitely politically, we need to be very mature and stable, right? And this is why I was annoyed by this nonsense at Strovilla as well. That we had a whole series of papers and social media. I mean, some of these Greek social media groups are just absolutely and utterly ridiculous. They've been bombarding their groups that, the Turks have basically attacked us, and yes, they may have come down, but they're not there now. But I haven't seen anybody report it. Right? They may have come down and then they've retreated. I think it's far more important to report that they've retreated, than the fact that they've moved a couple of barrels down. Okay, but there's definitely nothing there.
Going back, Clarissa has said that she was very enthusiastic by the phones being connected, and now since you pointed out that they're going to stick to the +90, seems she's well, she said it's not an interconnection then if you still have to dial +90.
Well, I'm not sure about it. It may be unless they're going to create a common prefix.
These might be details as well which haven't even been discussed yet either between the leaders, But then again, it's not something. I'm sure this isn't something which has been proposed by the two leaders, but more so by the telecommunications company who stand to benefit from this. But the illegal ones you mentioned in the north, and I don't know what Sida Vodafone's involvement's going to be on it. I mean, we know who owns Sida now, with Vodafone. I'm not quite sure what the agreement is between the two with Signal and Vodafone, but if it's just the mobile network that Vodafone have anything to do with, or is it actually the stuff they're on as well, internet services and
I think it's to do with the mobile network.
only?
Yeah, it's a mobile network, not the. Because look, the problem we have is if a Greek Cypriot goes to Kyrenia, right, his phone doesn't work.
Yeah.
Because he can't pick up a signal from Nicosia.
And there's no roaming?
Uh,
I think there's roaming. Don't you get roaming?
If you go through, no, not from the Cyprus network.
Not from the Cyprus network.
No.
Because that would mean them having to recognise the Cyprus network.
That's right.
And so
I remember one of the young ladies that we were on Sunday. She noticed that she was on roaming.
Yeah.
But she's got a Netherlands phone.
Yeah.
Okay. And she said, "Oh my God, I'm going to switch it off.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to pay a fortune."
Not EU. Yeah.
Being non-EU. You see. So the foreign networks, they'll pick up the roaming through the Turkish networks.
Mm-hmm.
But the Cyprus network is not connected.
Okay.
So that's the problem. So unless you go over there and buy a Turkish SIM card, right, you're not going to be able to get a signal.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what they're trying to sort out.
Okay.
Basically. Yeah. All right. So anything else? Should we discuss anything else that you want to discuss? So we don't seem to have a lot.
I think it's been nice to have a little quick catch up.
Yeah.
And it was a abrupto, impromptu decision. We decided like late last night to do this, while I'm here, and we're planning another one again March time. Yeah, but we'll give more details on that another time, I think. But yeah, this was just like a last minute decision because I've only been back for a few days as well. So we wanted to have a little catch up, talk about, well, especially Jim. I think the most interesting thing was Jim's road trip with the Dutch girls, the students, and we really hope that they found out what they wanted to find out through Jim.
Well, look,
you did your very best.
It was limited time. And I did my very best to, under the circumstances.
Yeah.
Gave them the opportunity to collect the information.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we should sort of sign off here now.
I'm happy.
Yeah. It's an hour. We didn't get a lot of feedback from the members today, and that could be perhaps because it's a weekday as well. Normally we have it on the weekend or Friday.
Yeah, on the weekend as well, and we started late as well.
Yeah, so a lot of people were at work.
We started it was 11 o'clock Cyprus time when we started, so and so 9 o'clock in the UK, so it's gone midnight now here. Yeah,
all right, so thanks everybody, and we'll might have one. I'll be in London between the 9th and 12th of March. So if we've got time and we're able to put one together,
I'm definitely going to prepare myself for that one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely.
So we could talk more about Brexit and how that affects Cyprus. Christo is a Brexiteer.
No, I'm not. Let's just make that clear. Let's just make this clear. When I've always been a huge Eurosceptic. Never, the EU has. It may have done some good, but it's been responsible for, or it's been a direct consequence for many hardships that have occurred on the European continent. And I'm talking mostly about the southern European countries and how their economies have been crippled, and it didn't really work out very well for them. So I've always been a huge Eurosceptic. So when I heard 4 years ago that there was going to be a referendum for Britain to leave the EU, I was like, great. Under what terms? this is the first question I asked myself: under what terms? What are we voting for here? To remain or to remain within the EU or to leave the EU, but under what terms? And this is something which maybe we can talk about as well, because I think people voted not knowing the terms and conditions. Labour have come out and said that they will back a second referendum, and I think that's a good idea. I think that now that, once a deal has been agreed upon, or if it's going to be no deal, or if there's going to be a deal, then the British public should get a chance to decide on whether they want that deal or not.
Yeah, okay, well, we can discuss that. And
maybe we can talk about that when we're in London.
Its consequences as far as Cyprus is concerned as well, because we do have 2 British bases here.
Mm-hmm.
And we can also discuss the issue of the ruling that was ruled in the Hague yesterday about the Chagos archipelago that the British had basically taken from Mauritius, I think it was, which has now been declared illegal, even though it's not a legally binding judgment. So that could have also consequences as far as the bases are concerned in Cyprus. The bases may actually be illegal, illegally obtained, because Cyprus would have been under duress to accept it in order to get their independence, which is also a mess.
Mm.
So anyway, we can talk about that. We can talk about what the Brexit would mean as far as the free movement and trade through the bases. Yeah. That could be a problem also. So let's see what happens there. All right, so thanks everybody, and I hope you enjoyed our little video today, and we'll talk soon. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.